darkness. "It's all one to a toad," Mattie said. "If it's not the one, it's the other. They don't have long to make hay in weather like this. We might not get another good rain for weeks. By morning there'll be eggs in every one of these puddles. In 2 days' time, even less, you can see tadpoles. Before the puddles dry up, they've sprouted legs and hit the high road." We were following behind Mattie in single file now, holding to one another's damp sleeves and arms in the darkness. All at once, Esperanza's fingers closed hard around my wrist. The flashlight beam had found a snake, just at eye level, its muscular coils looped around a smooth tree trunk. "Better step back easy. That's a rattler," Mattie said in a calm voice. With the flashlight she followed the coils to the end and pointed out the bulbs on the tail, as clear and fragile-looking as glass beads. The rattle was poised upright, but did not shake. "I didn't know they could get up in trees," I said. "Sure, they'll climb, after birds' eggs." A little noise came from my throat. I wasn't really afraid, but there's something about seeing a snake that makes your stomach tighten, no matter how you make up your mind to feel about it. "Fair's fair," Mattie pointed out, as we skirted a wide path round the tree. "Everybody's got her own mouths to feed." I knew right away that something had gone wrong. Luann was standing on the front porch waiting, and she looked terrible, not just because she was under a yellow light bulb. She'd been crying, possibly screaming. Her mouth looked stretched. She wasn't even supposed to be home yet. I ran up the sidewalk, almost tripping twice on the steps. "What is it? Are you okay?" "It's not me. Taylor, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this." "I'm so sorry, Taylor. It's Turtle." "Oh, God, no." I went past her into the house. Edna Poppy was sitting on the sofa with Turtle in her lap, all in one piece as far as I could see, but Turtle was changed. All these months we had spent together were gone from her. I knew it from her eyes, 2 cups of black coffee. I remembered exactly, how the whites of her eyes had been thin slivers of moon around the dark centers, how they had glowed orange on and off with the blinking neon sign from the godforsaken bar. I didn't go to her because I couldn't. It is that simple. I didn't want any of this to be happening. Mrs. Parsons was standing in the kitchen door with a broom. "A bird's got into the house," she explained, and disappeared into the kitchen again, and for a confused second I thought she meant that this was the terrible thing that had happened. But Luann was right behind me. "They were in the park, Edna and Turtle. It was so cool after the rain they thought they'd enjoy the air for a little bit, and Virgie was to come tell them if it looked like another storm was coming. But Virgie didn't come, and Edna never realized it was getting dark." "So what happened?" I was sick to my stomach. "We don't know exactly. I've called the police, and they're coming over with a medical examiner or a social worker or Christ, I don't know, somebody that can talk to Turtle. But what happened? How much do you know happened?" Edna's eyes looked more glassy than usual. I noticed, now that I looked at her, that her clothes were a little messed up. Just traces, the red sweater pulled down on one shoulder, a hole in her stocking. "I heard a peculiar sound," Edna said. She seemed almost in another world, a hypnotized person speaking out of a trance. It sounded like a bag of flour hitting the dirt. Turtle had been talking, or singing, I suppose, would be more like it. And then she was quiet, just didn't make a peep. But I heard struggling sounds. I called out, and then I swung my cane. I swung it high so I wouldn't hit the baby. I know how tall she is." She held her hand just where Turtle's head would be, if she had been standing on the floor in front of Edna. "Did you hit anything?" "Oh, yes, dear, yes. I don't know what, but something that had I'd say some give to it. You understand what I mean? Oh, and I shouted, too, some terrible things. The next thing I knew, I felt a great heavy weight on the hem of my skirt, and that was Turtle." "It took us 20 minutes to get her to turn loose," Luann said. Now she was holding on to Edna's sleeve instead of her hem. "Oh, my dear, I feel terrible. If I had only thought to come in a little sooner." "Could have happened to anybody, Edna," Luann said. "You couldn't have known what was going to happen. I might have done the exact same thing. You saved her is what you did. Anybody else might have been scared to swing at him. Anybody else, I thought, might have seen he had a gun or a knife." Someone knocked at the door, and we all jumped. It was the police, of course, a small man who showed his detective badge, and a woman who said she was a social worker, both of them dressed in ordinary clothes. Edna told what there was of her story again. The social worker was a prim-looking strawberry blonde who was carrying two rag dolls with yarn hair, a boy and a pigtail girl. She asked if I was the mother. I nodded, a dumb animal, not really a mother, and she took me into the hallway. "Don't you think a doctor should look at her?" I asked. "Yes, of course. If we find evidence that she's been molested, we'll need to talk with the child about it." "She won't talk," I said. "Not now. Maybe not ever." The social worker put her hand on my arm. "Children do recover from this kind of thing," she said. "Eventually they want to talk about what's happened to them." "No, you don't understand. She may not talk again at all. Period. I think you'll find that your daughter can be a surprisingly resilient little person, but it's very important that we let her say what she needs to say. Sometimes we use these dolls. They're anatomically accurate," she said, and showed me. They were. A child generally doesn't have the vocabulary to talk about these things, so we encourage her to play with these dolls and show us what's happened. "Excuse me," I said, and went to the bathroom. But Mrs. Parsons was there, with the broom. "A bird's in the house," she repeated. "A song sparrow. It came down the chimney." I took the broom out of her hands and chased the bird off its perch over the medicine cabinet. It swooped through the doorway into the kitchen, where it knocked against the window above the sink with an alarming crack and fell back on the counter. "It's dead!" Virgie cried, but it wasn't. It stood up, hopped to a sheltered place between a mixing bowl and Luann's recipe file, and stood blinking. In the living room they were asking about medical records. I heard Luann spelling out Dr. Pelinowski's name. Virge moved toward the bird slowly, crooning, with her hands stretched out in front of her, but it took off again full tilt before she could reach it. I battered it gently with the broom, heading it off from the living room full of policemen and anatomically accurate dolls, and it veered down the hallway toward the back porch. Snow Boots, at least, didn't seem to be anywhere around. "Open the screen door," I commanded Virgie. "It's locked. You have to flip that little latch. Now hold it open." Slowly I moved in on the terrified bird, which was clinging sideways to the screen. You could see its little heart beating through the feathers. I had heard of birds having heart attacks from fright. "Easy does it," I said. "Easy. We're not going to hurt you. We just want to set you free." The sparrow darted off the screen, made a loop back toward the hallway, then flew through the open screen door into the terrible night.